this week in Wisconsin prep hockey. I'm Mike Hammett. As you can see, I got the four other knuckleheads along with me tonight, and we got plenty to talk about. We got some playoff games we want to talk about that each of us had the chance to get out and see, and we're going to talk a little bit about the playoffs that are left as we got sectional semis and sectional finals going down this week. And we're going to have some participants for state all set up here shortly this week. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about our games that each of us had a chance to see. Michael, it sounds like you had the best one of the whole week.
Oops. It helps if you put it on mute.
Unmute.
Well, I had the longest one of the week, that is for sure, and potentially the longest one in United States high school hockey history. Viroqua Blackhawks and the Black River Falls Tigers battled at the Milt-Lunda Memorial Arena for 122 minutes and 51 seconds. And according to what I have on my score sheet, the previous high was 121 minutes and 58 seconds, East Ridge and Apple Valley back in 2016. I looked high and low for Miss Water Buffalo, according to the Flintstones, and found that it looks like the game that I was at is definitely the longest. It just seemed like it kept going on and on and on. They played the 3 regulation periods, and it was tied 1-1. They went to a first overtime, played 8. They played a second overtime for 17, then another 8, then another 17, then another 8, and then finally in the 6th overtime, with time winding down, actually with I believe it was 3:09 left on the game clock, Hannah Lane probably scored the biggest goal of her career. She's only a freshman, so it probably is, but it might be the biggest goal of her career ever for the next 4 years, as the Tigers beat Viroqua 2-1. Now, another thing that is noteworthy in this game is Viroqua goaltender Abigail Severson had 108 saves. I mean, we talked about this earlier, and it's actually less than a save a minute, so it doesn't seem like a lot, but over the course of a game, 108 saves, that's a damn lot. So I'm pretty sure, have not done a lot of research, but I'm guessing that's probably a national record too. So this game that lasted roughly 4 hours and 23 minutes on the clock from 7 o'clock till 11:23 p.m., set a couple of national records. I'm going to dig into that a little bit more and see what I can find out. But it was a great game, and Black River Falls came out in front 2-1. They played a whole shit ton of minutes, and it was very interesting. And at the end of the game, I don't think there were many tears. I think both teams were very happy that they had been part of this historic game. So a great game in Black River Falls. The Tigers beat the Viroqua Blackhawks 2-1. MJ, back to you, buddy.
Michael, how did the game-winning goal go?
It was. I had talked to Coach Oak Moser prior to this, like after the 4th or 5th or 6th overtime, and he said it's going to be a garbage goal, and it pretty much was. It was a shot from the point out on the left side. The Severson made the save. The puck bounced out to her left, and probably about I'd say 10, 12 feet away, Hannah Lane, the freshman, was right on and just sniped it into basically what was kind of an empty net, because Abby had made the save over to her right side and just couldn't quite get back in time. It was a good goal. Felt bad for Abby, but within probably 2 minutes after the game was over, she was smiling and laughing, and she knew what the game was. And yeah, they got beat, but it was a great experience, I think, for everybody out on the ice.
Dell, you familiar with Abby Severson for Viroqua?
I've actually had a few coaches talk about her. Uh, actually, hearing from her dad talk about her and everything, she's just one of those goalies that has impressed many of the girls' coaches throughout the season. And she's kept them in games, and she's a good goalie, and I don't know if you could ask for a better way to end your high school career if if you got to lose, what a way to lose.
Guys, I heard a little bit more after the game from Coach Paul Severson, the Viroqua coach, and he said that the day of the game, Abigail had called him from school at noon and said that she dislocated her, I think it was her right pinky finger playing dodgeball. She was reaching down to pick up a ball and somebody kicked it. So she played with a soft splint on her blocker hand and still had this amazing performance. And then after the game, actually, I think it was the next day, Coach Severson had said that on the way home, the kids were all chatty and happy, and yeah, they lost, but they knew that it was a great experience for them, and they pretty much, it was time to move on, and they knew it was a great game, and they had a lot of fun playing it.
How many close calls in the overtimes were there before the game winner? Was there a lot of them?
Well, it seemed like there was a lot. I mean, you're talking 6 overtimes. I would say probably, relatively speaking, maybe anywhere from 8 to 10, I guess, where the puck just went 2 inches wide, or the goalie reached out and made a kick save at the last second to knock a sure goal out of the net. And yeah, there were a lot of them, and it seemed like the fans, or probably, I'm gonna guess, like maybe 200. It's not a huge crowd, but it was a good crowd for girls hockey. And I don't think anybody went home. It seemed like, honestly, I thought there were more people in the stands at the end of the game than there were at the beginning. So it was an interesting game. The players got into it, the fans got into it. There were a lot of you know near misses, let's call them. And in the end, I mean, Black River Falls had 110 shots on goal. Viroqua had 27. So, I mean, there was a definite disparity that way. Black River Falls had the better offense, but I think in reality, Viroqua had the better goalie in that game. On the other side, Black River Falls goalie Josie Matheson, 26 saves out of 27 shots, but 108 out of 110 for Abby Severson. That's pretty hard to argue with, MJ.
No doubt about it. Let's move on to our burglar. He had a game that he checked out. He went to see Anago against Mosinee. Well, what'd you see, Bill?
It did not last 100 and some minutes. It was a regulation 51-minute game. Mosinee came out on top 8-2. I think it was probably the most physical of the hockey games I've seen this year in high school. Anago came out really throwing their bodies around. I talked to Coach Matt Borneman afterwards, and he said that was their strategy to try to slow down Mosinee, because Mosinee has the faster team. Their lineup was faster to begin with and was bolstered by a couple of exchange students this year, Maddie Richterik from Latvia and Tobias Holka from the Czech Republic. So they got a couple of foreigners on their team, but they're a fast team, and Anago's strategy was to try to slow them down by being physical with them, and it worked for about half the game, a period and a half. It was tied 1-1 after the first period. and Mosinee scored 8 minutes into the second period to take the lead that they would not relinquish, and then just kind of kept adding to it. But with the last 5 minutes of the second period, and then the third period, the Mosinee was faster and deeper, and the Robins hung with them for, like I said, for half the game, and then just kind of ran out of gas, and Mosinee kind of cruised to the finish line with an 8-2 win in that game.
As we look on here, we got another game to talk about, and Del, I believe you were part of that one.
Thanks, MJ. I believe last week I said I wouldn't be surprised if Monroe was able to pull off an upset over RWD, but RWD ended up winning this game with 1-0. Ben Fish in the first period with about 22 seconds remaining, 23 seconds remaining in the first period, took a shot from just inside the blue line that beat the Monroe goaltender for the 1-0 lead. And the second period, it looked like Monroe had a chance to tie it up. Cooper Oakes came out, made the save, came out wide to his left, made the save. Unfortunately for him, the puck rebounded right out in front of the net, wide open net. The Monroe player is taking the shot. Looks like it's going to be a tie. Before he can get the shot off, a RWD player gets his stick in front, deflects it up and over the crossbar into the netting. And so the game remains tied 1-0 at the end of 2. They went into the third period, a little over a minute left. Monroe pulled their goalie, and RWD actually had another chance to put the game away in the empty netter, and the player skating it in goes in towards this backhand flip and puts it into the side of the net. And so it ends up staying 1-0. RWD advanced play Edgewood on Thursday evening, which turned out to be another very good game.
Del, I'm looking at the stats in this game, and the stats don't show the Monroe goalie coming out. It has him playing a complete game. But, I mean, that's beside the point. It looks like it was a pretty defensive game. There weren't a lot of shots. There were only 42 shots total, according to the stats, between the two teams. Case of very good defense or just not a lot of offense?
Very good defense was played in this one. Neither team was letting them get good shots off. Monroe's speed is what really impressed me during the game, and it was one of the things that, talking to Neil Matson, he was a little nervous about going into the game. He knew they had the speed, and got to talk to Barry, the coach from Monroe, before the game also, and the second half of the season, of course, suffered with the flu going around, and then a couple of their players had been banged up and injured, but everybody was coming back healthy, and that wasn't going to be an issue in that game. And it was a game that nobody, win or lose, was able to hang their head after the game was over.
Yeah, I mean, we talked with Coach Barry Einbeck earlier in the year, probably 3-4 weeks ago. They had a lot of success early in the season. I mean, like you say, definitely nothing to hang their heads about. Monroe hockey, I think, is on the upswing a little bit. Maybe not quite like a team that's at the level of Madison Edgewood or Sun Prairie or teams like that, but they're definitely working on their way up.
Well, Coach Einbeck did say, he knew that the tougher part of their schedule was going to be the second half, but I think one of the highest compliments that you can pay to Monroe, talking to the coaching staff from RWD, they had nothing but praise for that team, and they said they're impressed with the way Monroe hockey has improved and where they're going to, and they said that's nothing but good for hockey.
All right. Well, I guess that leads it down to my turn for the last game we talk about. I got the chance to check out the McFarland Spartans as they were taking on the Oregon Panthers. These two teams at one time were a co-op back in 2000. They made a state tournament appearance. but they're no longer. Then they're big rivals. And this one did not disappoint. McFarland, as we know, has been ranked in our top 6 most of the season, if not all the season. Looking probably as a favorite in this one, but it was, in that game, Oregon really played good defensively. They got great goaltending in the game, and they did it very. I want to say economical. I mean, they scored, they made their shots count, and they were able to get a 6-3 win. It was a 4-3 game, but then we had a 2 empty netters, and one of the empty netters guys was one called on. The guy had a breakaway, and one of the kids from the other team threw his stick at the puck.
Yep, that's a goal.
Now the rule is if the goalie was still in the net, that would be a penalty shot.
Correct.
But since the goalie was out of the net, that is a goal. And Michael, that was called by one of our well-known referees, Ryan Reichel.
And as the guy in the movie Midnight Express said, no do, no do.
No, nobody had. Well, even Ryan said, I've never had that situation in any game I've ever done over, 20 some years, and I'd never come across it. Burglar, you've been through some games. Do you ever see that? Well, his mouth's moving, but we don't hear what he's got to say.
Your lips move, but I can't hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
At the youth level, I've seen that, but not at the high school level, because youth level kids do a lot of stupid stuff. Not that high school kids don't, but yeah.
I believe that happened once earlier in the year. I'm going to take a minute to look it up, so you move along. But I believe it happened already once this hockey season.
Where somebody actually threw the stick? Or
yeah, because I had a reason to look it up. Because as soon as you started saying that, I knew I looked it up. Because I knew throwing your stick was a penalty shot. I've always known that. But yeah, if the goalie is pulled, that's just a goal. They don't make you take a penalty shot against an empty net because that would be dumb. So I believe that happened.
And you might miss.
Yeah, and that would be real embarrassing.
Did that happen on a USM game?
I'm almost certain it was Alex Thundercloud.
Yeah, I'm thinking that is.
Did they play Notre Dame in the showdown?
I think it was after that though.
Seems like it was after that. Yeah, you have to go through all the write-ups from Tommy G, but I'm almost certain that it was Alex Thundercloud of USM. If it was not Alex Thundercloud of USM,
we're sorry,
I apologize.
But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, shit happens, right? I mean, people just react. So it's not that they're good or bad. It happens.
So MJ, one of the things that I think we did talk about last week before this game was, it was a 5-4, as 5 against a 4 seed, but I think we talked about how Oregon, the second half of the season, had really improved on their game and everything. So while on paper it might say it's an upset, I think that we were thinking that none of us were going to be that surprised if this did come out this way.
Well, it was even one of those things where just looking at the way their games went this year, it stood every chance of being a close game, and it was. Colton Daly was just peppered with pucks all night from McFarland. If I remember right, he made 47 saves according to the score sheet, and he did a very good job. I mean, one really trickled in on the side of the net. I mean, he had everything covered, but that puck just found a way to get in, and the one bad turnover in front, and then they got another one. The first one was just a plain good shot. So, but he was challenged all night long, and he came out on top and played very well and gave his team a chance to win. And if I remember correctly, they were outshot by around a 2-1 margin or something like that, and were still able to manufacture 4 goals. So, good for them. They move on. Congratulations to them. As they move on, they get to face Fond du Lac Springs in the next round. And everybody seems okay with that. All right. Well, since I've made you guys speechless, let's check out what we got here. Let's go over the brackets that we have left. Division 2, Section 1. Let's go ahead and start out with what we got left here. As the WIPH site comes up. Round 2 has Amory against Rice Lake and Superior against Hayward. And guys, give me your thoughts on this one.
Well, no surprises so far. I mean, you've got 1 versus 4, 3 versus 2, left. That's, your top 4 seeds. There were no real upsets.
Yeah, the lower seed in this bracket scored a total of 1 goal. Or the higher seed, depending on how you categorize them. Amory shut out Whistle Flag. New Richmond scored a goal against Rice Lake. Superior shut out Medford, and Hayward shut out Chequamegon Phillips. 1 goal. Rice Lake, the 4 seed, actually beat Amory earlier in the year 2-1 and outshot them 36-27 in that game. Hayward beat Superior earlier in the year 3-0, outshooting them 35-25. So make of that what you will.
Going to keep an eye on that Hayward and Superior one. That's going to be a really good matchup tomorrow night. It's one of those that, as you just said, Junior, that Hayward beat them earlier in the year, and can they do it again?
And it wasn't that long ago. It was a January game, maybe even early February. It was not that long ago.
Yeah, and that's one of those where the number 3 seed could very well beat the number 2 seed, but Hayward's played very well. Superior's kind of, I'm sure they would agree with us, have not played up to their usual standards this year. Amory on the other side, I think, has a little bit of an advantage. They have Player of the Year nomination or a finalist, Jackson Henningsgaard, playing for them. So yeah, it should be very interesting. I don't think there's any clear-cut winners in either game. We'll know a little bit more after tomorrow.
All right, guys. Let's move on to Division 2, Sectional 2. And
yeah, somehow the bracket here seems to be busted.
Yeah.
But, well, I mean, but the games are still there. The other game is Wapaka at Northland Pines, and that was one of your mild upsets. Wapaka being a 5 seed, beating Marshfield, who was the 4 seed. So Wapaka playing at Northland Pines tomorrow night, and the other one that's in here twice is Rhinelander. Yes, Rhinelander Lakeland. We had mentioned this before, that the reason we were somewhat suspect about Lakeland was because they had lost early in the season to Rhinelander, and they did it again. The number 7 seed, one of 2 number 7 seeds to knock off a number 2 seed on Thursday,
and in 2 very different fashions. Like Rhinelander took it to Lakeland. Like they outshot them in the game. It was, Rhinelander, according to the stat sheet, looked like the better team all the way. The other game where it was a 7-2, that goalie made 50 saves for the 7. The 2 just couldn't put the puck in the net. So very different fashion for those 2 7-2 games.
When was the last time we did see Rhinelander in a sectional semi? I'd say it's probably been a while.
It's been a while. I mean, there were times back in the mid-2000s when they were 14, 15 win teams, but it's been a while. MJ Lagos, still the head coach. He's got a lot of experience. Yeah, I mean, a 7-2, that's definitely an upset. 3-1, so it's not like it was a real barn burner. It was 2-goal game, and should be some interesting games. Pines, I think, is the class of the section, but time will tell. Mosinee looks like they've been playing well, and we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, Pines
Yeah,
has beaten Wapaka 10-2 and 5-0, and Mosinee has beaten Rhinelander 5-2 and 7-5. That second game, Mosinee that won 7-5, Rhinelander actually outshot them 34-26. So it looks like the difference in that game was goaltending.
and
More to-
Mosinee gets an unexpected home game.
Yeah,
Yes, they do. Let's go on to Section 3 in Division 2. Baldwin Woodville will be hosting Menominee, and Somerset is going to be traveling to River Falls. I'm sure that's a very short drive for them.
Yep, Baldwin Woodville has beaten Menominee 9-3 already this year, and the only time they played, River Falls and Somerset skated to a 4-4 tie with shots even at 25. So that one is a good coin flip.
And this
Yeah.
one had another one of those mild upsets with fifth seeded Menominee beating the 4 seed West Salem and our old pal Eric Bore's team.
Yeah, and this, I mean, BW, number 1 seed. So are they the favorite? You know how that goes sometimes with the seeding. I don't know. 2 and 3 are both pretty good. Somerset and River Falls. I mean, actually, this is one of those sectionals that I think any one of these 4 teams could be the winner. I don't think there's a clear-cut winner. So, I mean, again, this is cliche, but we'll see what happens tomorrow night. Guys.
All right, well, let's move on to Section 4, Division 2. Fond du Lac Springs playing Oregon and Wanakee playing Waupun. Talk about some pretty good games. There's a couple good ones right there. Oregon playing well against Fond du Lac Springs, who's pretty much played well all year. And Wanakee and Waupun, those two teams, we kind of figured those two may butt heads against each other, and sure enough, they're going to meet
Tonight, right now,
tonight.
even as we speak.
Yeah, I see that. They're playing tonight. Okay.
They were afraid of weather tomorrow, so they bumped it up a day.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's the only game that is actually being played tonight. Yeah, number 2 Wanakee, number 3 Wanakee, number 2 Waupun. They've been kind of flip-flopping. They've been in the top 6 more or less all year. Wanakee, I think for sure has. Waupun's been moving in and out, but Waupun, you know, they got this young goaltender, Tyler Fromos, who I believe is a sophomore, and he's had a heck of a year. Wanakee with Coach Eric Olson, they've been pretty much a more or less a juggernaut the whole season. On the top half of the bracket, Fondy Springs been stout from start to finish. Oregon, you know, number 5 seed, so we'll see. And I mean, you know, cliche again. We'll see after tonight. I would think Fondy Springs would be the favorite, but you just never know.
Wanakee, offense all day long. They just keep coming at you offensively. So we'll see how they do against Waupun tonight. That one we'll know in a little while a score, but those are the sections. Section 4 and D2. Let's go ahead and move on to the girls' side and Section 1. And let's see their game schedule here. Oh, come on. Usually I know how to navigate the site.
If you need some help, I can help you. Number 1 Eau Claire Stars will play the number 5 Hayward Hurricanes in the top half of the bracket, and the number 3 Hudson Raiders will take on the number 2 St. Croix Valley Fusion. Again, you know, I mean, Section 1 on the girls' side is just a very stout sectional. These are 4 teams, and I mean, any one of them could win on any given Sunday, or in this case, any given Tuesday. So, it should be a very interesting battles in both of those games. They take place at Hobbs Ice Arena. The Stars and the Canes and the Raiders and the Fusion will battle at United Center or United Civic Center Ice Arena in Baldwin. So should be two really, 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 really highly contested games.
Bill, have you seen any of these teams?
I've actually seen the Fusion play, but I did reach out to coaches and try to get a little feedback on what they were feeling going into these games. Um, Coach Bernhardt, says they've got a lot of respect for Hayward. Says they probably got arguably the best goaltender in the state. And of course, I'm going to get a lot of coach speak from them, but you don't expect any of that. There's a lot of respect there for the way these teams play. Hayward's been a team that they've seen throughout the year. It's the third time they're meeting this year, and the Stars haven't given up a goal to Hayward this season yet. Then when you look at the other side, the Raiders and the Fusion, it's going to be their third meeting. They know each other. They're conference opponents. So, neither one of them are going to be surprised as to what the other team does on the ice. But, there's a lot of respect there. Coach Cranston, says, you're going to get a tough game every time you play the Hudson. And basically the same thing coming back from the other coach.
Yep, Eau Claire area has beaten Hayward 1-0 and 3-0, and St. Croix Valley has beaten Hudson 3-2 and 4-1. And as I have always said, once you've beaten a team twice, beating them a third time is a whole lot easier. Everybody who says that beating a team 3 times in a season is bad at math, because once you've already done it twice, it makes that third one so much easier. That's not to say that neither of these teams will pull an upset out, but I would go with the favorites.
Well, they are favorites, and rightfully so. But you still got to play the game.
Yes,
and that's what they will do. Let's move on. Let's see, I believe I got here. Section 2.
Yep, that's usually what comes after 1.
Yep, Pines playing Central Wisconsin Storm and the Bay Area Ice Bears taking on the Fox City Stars. Both those games are tomorrow night. Central Wisconsin will play at Greenheck, and Tri-County Ice Arena in Neenah will have Fox City host the Bay Area.
Yep. Fox Cities and Bay Area have split their 2 games this season. A 3-0 win for Fox Cities, and then a 5-2 win for Bay Area. So that doesn't tell us anything.
I think that on the bottom half of the bracket with the Ice Bears, seeded number 3, Fox City Stars seeded number 2. The Fox City early in the season played very well, and then they've kind of struggled a little bit as of late. And I think it's been just the opposite for the Ice Bears. They played better in the second half of the season. So I don't know, how much that means, but normally, it's like who's playing the best hockey at playoff time. Ice Bears have been playing very well. Top half of the bracket, number 1 Storm, number 4 Northland Pines. I'm not going to touch this one. Sorry, guys.
It's best you don't.
You're not allowed to talk about Northland Pines. We all know that the high school girls at Eagle River area are your arch nemesis. So
Coach Wheatus basically said that their games were fairly even with penalties relatively low during their 2 games against the Fox City Stars. And I'm going to read his quote here. They are a team of mostly upperclassmen with more big game experience. They are a team that plays very solid on both ends of the ice and makes few mistakes. To get past them, we need to do what we did in the second game. Match physical play as a team, minimalism penalties, and compete for 51 minutes. We do that, I'm confident we can make it to the next round. It's going to be a great game. And, like I said, still going to get some coach speak, but at the same time, he gives us what he's looking for and what they did to win their second game against them. And then up on the top of the bracket, you got both coaches saying, you know, they need to pressure with the forecheck, get pucks to the net with bodies in front, and it's going to take a lot of work. So they're both. I think you're going to have two close games in this on both sides, and I think both these are probably going to be 1-goal games.
Section 3 has a pretty competitive bracket in it. Metro Lynx hosting Black River Falls at Madison Ice Arena, and the Cap City Cougars taking on the Cinderella Icebergs at Sun Prairie. Cap Cities has beat them twice. Black River Falls and the Metro Lynx. Dell, you had a chance to see either of those two teams?
Actually, I've got to see them both. And Trasher can speak to Matheson. She's easily one of the top goalies in the state. I got to see her against Northland Pines. Trasher saw her against Wisconsin Valley Union besides the marathon game he attended last week. And I believe against the Valley Union, wasn't that a 1-0 game, Trasher, that Black River Falls pulled out?
Yeah, that's one of those deals where it's so long ago in the season. I mean, we've been to a lot of games, and I don't remember, but
that wasn't that long ago.
Well, for me it was. I'm an old guy.
But
what I can tell you about Josie Matheson is she is arguably one of the 3 top goalies in the state. And depending on who you talk to, there's Severson, Matheson, and Quimby. I think those are probably three that belong in the top 3. She does a great job. The Lynx has been a pretty stout team this year. They've stumbled a couple of times, but they got a couple of good goalies in McCursey, and I can't remember the other kid's name. They alternate more or less, but they got a lot of offense. Black River Falls, not much offense. They're going to really lean on Matheson to keep the puck out of the net. And as much as I hate to say this, she's almost going to have to pitch a shutout or maybe give up one for the Tigers to win. The Lynx, I think, have too much firepower on the top half. On the bottom half, Icebergs, I think, just ran into a good game. That was definitely an upset over the Hilltoppers. And the Cougars are pretty stout. I honestly think the Cougars are going to win on the bottom half. So I think you're going to end up with 1 and 2 seeds in the finals in the sectional, Dell.
Well, you've mentioned all the other goalies without mentioning the Icebergs goalie, Avon Gruner, who stopped 39 out of 40 shots in that upset win over Onalaska. Onalaska outshot the Icebergs 40-13, but the Icebergs came out on top. So I think you better throw Ava Gruner in there when you're talking about the goalies in this section.
Well, she's going to be busy because the first 2 times Cap City and the Iceberg played, it was 9-0 and 7-1. So she's going to be real busy. And I don't think that Lexi Holman from Cap Cities gets enough credit for how good she is. I don't hear her talked about when people talk about Quimby and Severson and Pistol Cowden when they're talking about the best goalies in the state. But she's 953, goals against of .91, and her stats don't fall off when she's playing against the better teams in the state. I've been running some numbers, and Cap City are one of the better defensive teams in the state, but when it comes to actually like opponent shooting percentage, they're the best. They're the best combination of stopping opponents from shooting and keeping the puck out of the net when they do shoot it. I don't think she gets enough credit for being a fantastic goalie.
And the other thing on top of that, Junior, is the 4 defensemen that Coach Thornton runs in there for his team, they play, with the team first concept. The whole team that does that, and that's one thing that they've emphasized. And Holman is a very good goalie. She's easily, in the top 6, 7 of the state, and she doesn't get the credit that she deserves. Where they tend to struggle at times, and I think you pointed this out earlier in the year, is when it comes to time to score. They don't have the offensive firepower that some of the other teams do. But I agree. I think we're probably looking at a 1-2 matchup in the sectional finals.
Well, then let's talk about the Metro Lynx goalies, because Addie Armstrong has played 465 minutes. She's got a .944 save percentage, 1.21 goals against. Cameron McCursey, Coach Mike McCursey's daughter, .924 and a 169. So there's some good net mining on this end. I think Metro Lynx got more offense, and I honestly think that they're the favorites to move on to state in this battle.
It should be a pretty good one, as we'll watch how that bracket finishes off tomorrow night and later on in the week. Rock County in Section 4 hosting the USM Wildcats, and Arrowhead hosting the Warbirds. Guys, this is a pretty good bracket as well. USM and Rock County should be a wonderful game. These two teams haven't seen each other this year, but both of them play very good schedules. The Warbirds having a down year. Arrowhead still is very capable, and I see these two games as both of them being very good.
Yeah, the first time they played, the Warbirds beat the Warhawks 2-1. So that was just a 1-goal game, and as you said, on the other half of the bracket, those two teams haven't seen each other yet.
But yeah, I can tell you that Rock County played Arrowhead earlier in the year, and Arrowhead beat them. In fact, Arrowhead shut them out, if I remember correctly.
Well, Rock County needs to worry about USM before they start thinking about a possible matchup with Arrowhead.
That is very true.
And,
go ahead, Del.
Rock County, if you look at it, their last 6 to 7 games have just been, very impressive with it. According to Coach Storr, they struggled at the earlier part of the season, starting off slow in the first period, but he says they've turned that around here near the end of the season, and they've come out with 2 wins, one over the Lynx and one over the Cougars, to end up with a 3-way tie for the Badger Conference title. And then they had a close game against the ECA Stars. So, they are the favorite to come out of this conference and make it to their second appearance down at Madison.
With all 5 bands.
In fact, Arrowhead and Rock County, when they played earlier this year, they played in the second game of the season and the fourth game of the season. Each team took turns shutting the other out.
And Del touched on it earlier. Rock County, they changed something in late December, early January. Something clicked for them, because they got pummeled in 2 games by the Fox Cities Stars, and shortly thereafter they started having really good games against really good teams. They had 1-goal games with both the Cap City Cougars and Metro Lynx, but yeah, they got pummeled in 2 games by the Fox City Stars. So something turned around for them and started to click.
Well, I think their goaltending got better, as Olivia Cronin, looking here, regular season, a .926 save percentage. But your star players really started putting numbers together. Annika Einbeck, 58 points. Alyssa and Haley Knopf, each 48 points. I mean, that's a lot of points between 3 players. And they're pretty much they're expected to carry the load, and they started carrying the load a little bit more consistently. And, when they do, usually good things happen for them.
Well, MJ, they definitely lean on the Hanson sisters as Alyssa Knopf, Annika Einbeck, and Haley Knopf, numbers 3, 4, and 5, versus the Hanson brothers of 17, 18, and 19 um, on the uniforms. And they've been doing a bang-up job, absolutely so. Um, they Rock County definitely leans on these young ladies to um, put the scoring punch into them. Olivia Cronin has been playing very well this year in net, so especially in the latter part of the season. So definitely, I think this is the Rock County Fury is definitely the favorite here to move on to Madtown.
It's going to also depend on what they do defensively. They got to play good defense. Make sure Cronin gets a chance to make a save, but you get it going back the other way. You've got those 3 thoroughbreds that can just fly and they can put the puck away and they can do it quickly. So should be a good game tomorrow night. USM taking on the Rock County Fury here in Janesville. Division 1 boys. Let's go to Section 1.
The section of death.
Onalaska taking on Hudson, and Chippewa Falls taking on Wausau West. Oh my goodness.
3 of these 4 teams were in the state tournament last year.
Chippewa Falls is the only team that wasn't.
Yep. They beat Eau Claire North, who was in the state tournament last year, to get to this game. So, yeah, section of death. Onalaska and Hudson have not seen each other this year. Wausau West beat Chippewa Falls 4-1. That one will be a good one. That'll be a battle of the goalies. Bridger Fixmer and Adam Prokop. A couple of really good goalies who are both getting votes for our goalie award. That should be a good matchup for them. Hudson, I've been saying this, I guess, for the last 5 years. Hudson is just kind of an unstoppable juggernaut over there in the western part of the state. So Onalaska's got a tough task ahead of them. Even though they're not number 1 in the rankings, I still think Hudson's the best team in the state.
Hudson is just Hudson, right?
They're now that
forever.
Now that Hudson is, it's been happening over the last 20 years and really taken off the last 10. Now that Hudson is really just part of Minnesota, the level of their game has gone higher and more consistent. Now that Hudson is a bedroom community for the Twin Cities, you don't want it to go that way, but they might as well be a Minnesota team at this point. They came across Highway 53 once all season.
You keep track of that stuff, don't you?
Well, Burglar pointed that out last week, maybe the week before.
It just seems very odd when we're talking about sectional semis. We're not talking about Eau Claire Memorial.
It was real. I mentioned that on our Twitter account the other day, but getting into the sectional semis and neither Eau Claire team is there. No mention. Spash isn't there. You tell somebody that Stevens Point, Eau Claire Memorial, and Eau Claire North are all going to fail to get to the sectional semifinal, and you're like, congratulations, WIAA. If you wanted new teams at the state tournament, you've certainly accomplished it. Stuffing half the tournament into one bracket got the job done.
Well, Coach Franzini, I asked him if he had actually been able to see Hudson play at all this year, and he said he got to see him once live in February and then on video a few different games, and says if they're going to have a chance in this game, he says they need to play perfect hockey, be disciplined, and be opportunistic. And then you look at with Coach Drewiski, he says, Hudson needs concern. They need to play hard and fast within their system and a mindset of the next shift. So, once again, I believe you got 2 coaches that respect the other teams, but I think it's going to be a hard thing for Onalaska to find their way past Hudson in this one.
This is one of those games where the lower seed. Because Onalaska is a very good team. I mean, we're talking about them as a 4 seed. Yes. They're a very good team. They've been to state twice in the last 3-4 years. They're an excellent team, but this is one of those cases where they cannot take penalties. Cannot. Every penalty they take is just death. In a game when you're playing against one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the state, you cannot take stupid penalties. And on the if they get chances against Hudson, they really need to focus. They cannot mess around on their power play. They need to take it to them. And when it's 5-on-5, they just need to play lockdown defense and hope for the best, and then hope to win it on special teams.
Chippewa Falls and Wausau West on the other side of the bracket tomorrow night as well. As you were talking about, goaltending going to be very key in this one.
It is. Wausau West has probably got more in front of their goalie than Chippewa Falls does. But, the Cardinals, they'll be right there.
Sectional 2, Beaver Dam at Neenah and Bayport at Notre Dame Academy.
I was going to say these are both conference games, but they're not anymore. Beaver Dam left the Badgerland Conference.
Yes.
So they have not played Neenah yet this year. But, yeah, Beaver Dam goalie Kirk Davis had 51 saves in their 6-3 win over Fond du Lac Cardinals. And Ben Kramers, I believe he's a senior forward, had 5 goals in their 6-3 win over Fond du Lac. So, usually, the lower seeded team, the guy gets 50 saves and wins. You think, oh, that's, just a goalie bailing them out. But they had a 5'7", 155-pound senior put in 5 goals. That's a nice day at the office. That's a nice week for most guys. That's a nice week. That's a nice week for anybody. 5 goals a week is 70 goals on the season.
Yeah, that's a huge upset for Beaver Dam over Fondy. Fondy has kind of been, I don't know, getting into the near the top 6. Honorable mention, I think in the olden days we would call it, but they've been playing very well. They had a great year, and to get hammered by Beaver Dam 6-3, I think we need to give Beaver Dam a little credit. Jose Matamoros, their head coach, has done a nice job with them. He's been with them, I think, 2 or 3 years. I don't remember exactly how long, but for a 7 to beat a 2 in a 6-3 game, that give a lot of credit to Beaver Dam for that game. But they're going to have their work cut out for them a little bit against number 3 Neenah, Hortonville Menasha in the semifinal game. They've been kind of in our top 6 early in the year, not so much later on, but I think they still got a pretty good game. On the top half, Notre Dame Academy Bayport. Notre Dame has been pretty much no doubt number 1, but Bayport I think is sneaky. So I think that game is going to be a little closer than we would expect, guys.
Well, I was a little shocked just to see that Beaver Dam was 15-7-2 on the season. When was the last time Beaver Dam won 15 games? And they're averaging better than 5 goals a game. They haven't been shut out at all this year. There's not a lot of teams when you get to the end of the year that can say across their 24-game schedule they haven't been shut out. Beaver Dam has not been shut out. That they only have 2 shutouts to their name as well. They give up more than 3 goals a game. So they're a 7 seed, but 15-7-2 is nothing to shake a stick at. That's pretty good. Neenah and Fondy both, you said were both sort of on the back end of the top 6, and they may have been there if they were honorable mentions. They were both just kind of inconsistent this year. They weren't as, obviously Neenah played in the title game last year. They just weren't as consistent as they were last year. But they've still got, they're still the higher seed. They'll still be the favorite going into this game with Fondy. Notre Dame and Bayport played twice this year. Notre Dame won 6-1 and 4-1. So if the math holds true this time, they should win 2-1 because Bayport's been cutting off 2 goals a game. So that's my prediction on that one.
But it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a season, Junior.
No, it's not. After you've beaten them twice, your odds of winning the 3rd game are about 78%.
I just had to throw that out there. Section 3, Sauk Prairie taking on Verona. And Sun Prairie taking on the Madison Edgewood Crusaders tomorrow night. Sauk Prairie and Verona. Verona number 1 seed. Verona can fill it up. Sauk Prairie, I don't know if they've played a team like Verona yet this year, but they're going to get a shot at the Wildcats.
Yeah, this is kind of their show me game. At 19-4-1, this is their game where they prove, are they putting up all those gaudy stats against cupcakes, or can they do it against a real team?
The big boys.
Yeah, this is their. I mean, they've beaten other ranked teams. They've beaten Wanakee. They tied McFarland. They beat Wanakee again. We just talked about Beaver Dam. They beat them. So this will be a big game for them. They haven't played a team like Verona, but that's not to say they can't go ahead and pull it out. On the other side, I was looking at their schedule. I was honestly surprised to see that Edgewood beat Sun Prairie 6-1. For the season that Sun Prairie had, I wouldn't have been surprised that they had lost to Edgewood in their matchup this season, but 6-1 was a little surprising. Sun Prairie's had a very strong team this year.
Junior?
Oh, go ahead.
Sauk Prairie actually lost to Wanakee both their games this year, 2-0.
Was I looking at the wrong letters?
Yeah. So they actually lost both games to Wanakee, but I was just kind of looking here. They lost to Middleton 3-2 on February 15th. Their best win on the season going through here was they beat McFarland 8-2, and then you go down and you look at it. So when it comes to ranked teams, they didn't really do that well. But as we said before, this is where Jelinek and DeRoches, need to step it up and show that they can do this on the big stage.
And guys, for me, the thing here is bottom half of the bracket, number 3 Sun Prairie, number 2 Madison Edgewood. Let's call it a toss-up. My story for this bracket is number 4 Sauk Prairie, Coach Dave Lowry. This guy has coached in the USHL. He's coached in the minor leagues. He's got stories to tell you. He is a big guy with like the NIT tournament over in Minnesota. An awesome guy, a funny guy. Whether his team or not can beat Verona might be another thing, but you want to quote in the locker room, talk to Dave Lowry for Sauk Prairie. He's a great guy. I don't know if you guys know him or have talked to him at all, but I met him over in Minnesota last year on the NIT, and I mean, he was just a chuckle a minute. He's a great guy, a good story. And like I said, Verona I think is the huge favorite in this game, but I like Sauk Prairie coach, guys.
I think Verona is a huge favorite in this whole bracket, to be honest with you. If Verona is able to pull off the win against Sauk Prairie, Sun Prairie, they've beat them twice, and they beat Madison Edgewood this year. So Verona's, very familiar with the other two teams on the bottom side of the bracket as well.
And you asked, if we talk to Coach Lowry. I don't talk to coaches who live south of Highway 21 that runs from Oshkosh to Tomah. That's my cutoff. I only talk to coaches north of that line.
All I can do is laugh, Junior. So we'll take care of the southern half of the state, and you can take care of the northern half.
That's what Dell and MJ are for.
Lowry is a character. I mean, he's got a story for anything, and he's like Dave Whitting at the NIT tournament. He knows everybody. He's hilarious. He's a good guy. He's a good coach, and I only hope for good things for him. But I think Verona in this game is just going to be a little bit of a definite winner or edge on this game.
Let's move on to Section 4, our last one. KMMO taking on University School, and the Hilltoppers of Marquette taking on the Warhawks of Arrowhead. That's what you get if you cross Arrowhead and Warhawks. You get Warhead.
The Warheads.
Yeah.
The Arrowhawks and the Warheads. Arrowhead has beaten Marquette 4-3 and 7-1, and USM has beaten KMMO 5-3. So that's where those ones stand in this bracket. I expect, because this used to be Section 8, 7, 8, one of those two.
Right.
I expect one of the two, either Arrowhead or USM, one of them's going to lose. That always seems to happen in this bracket. So one of them's going to lose. I don't know which one. I have no real strong feeling either way. But I think Arrowhead has been, obviously they're undefeated. They've been strong all season long. USM, I think, was stronger in the early half of the season than they were in the latter half of the season. But that's not to say that they can't still win. But I think just the way this bracket's gone in the past, one of them's going to lose, surprisingly.
University School is not the University School of last year. And I think KMMO may surprise you a little bit. I think they're going to give University School a tough game.
I mean, 5-3 last time was, I don't know if that fifth one was an empty netter or not. That's a close game.
Yeah, Marquette and Arrowhead. I had a chance to see Arrowhead. I didn't see Marquette this year. I did have a chance to see Arrowhead, and they're just solid. They're just solid. And for their record, it speaks for itself. They're just that good.
Carl Valamont has again been a great coach for this team, and 21-0-2 or 22-0-2. They have no losses during the season, and you can say what you want. They can say that they have not played the ultimate teams in the state. They haven't played all the front runners, but to have 0 losses in 24 or 25 games, whatever they have now, that's pretty impressive. Bottom half USM and KMMO. MJ, you're right. USM played pretty well at the early half of the season. They've been struggling a little bit here and there. KMMO has been up and down. Bottom half, definitely a coin flip. I think Arrowhead is just a smidge better than Marquette in this game, so I like them to go to the sectional final, guys.
Looking here at Arrowhead's schedule for this year, they started out big, beat Homestead 9-0. Third game of the season, Fond du Lac Springs 0 tie. KMMO beat them 5-2. Sun Prairie, they beat them 5-1. Let's see, roll on here. Fond du Lac beat them 7-4. Verona beat them 4-1. U School beat them 3-1.
I think that 4-1 Verona and then 3-1 U School is what made their tie with Sheboygan so surprising. Saturday, February 1st, 4-1 over Verona. Tuesday, February 4th, 3-1 over University School. Thursday, February 6th, 1-1 with Sheboygan. That was just, I think that surprised a lot of people. Obviously, they outshot them 41-18. So, sometimes the goalie stands on his head. And Trasher is absolutely right. You can say that Arrowhead did not play all of the top-ranked teams like some of the other top-ranked teams did. But you can still say they're 22-0-2. You don't get to be undefeated by not being great. I don't care if you're playing, all season long against 4 versus 7 seeds. You're going to lose a game in there at some point. It's just going to happen unless you're great.
Well, I'll tell you that still Arrowhead is still going to be very tough to beat. I just what I've seen, had a chance to see them earlier in the year. They reminded me a lot of the Arrowhead of 2005 when I had the chance to see them against Janesville a couple of times. The lines they rolled, they were all just solid across the board. They just rolled them out.
Well, what surprises me is that you started that sentence as if somebody disagrees with you.
Well, somebody might. You never know. Wouldn't be the first time.
I think Arrowhead is pretty well respected across the state at this point. Everybody knows that they're great. They deserve their number one seed. And they're the front runner to come out of this bracket for good reason. They've already beaten everybody who's still here. So, I mean, just do it again.
Okay, guys, we've went.
It's
through
that easy.
all-
You've already done it. Just do it again.
Just do it again. Sure. Just that easy. All right, guys. Well, we've went through everything here, and guys, got anything else you really need to get off your chest, or are you ready to go Betty bye for the night?
Yeah, that.
Yeah, that. Okay. You can subscribe to This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher, or wherever podcasts are found. You can also watch us record the show live on YouTube like you had the chance to do tonight.
And I don't know why you would want to do that.
Yeah, I don't know, but just for kicks and giggles, go for it.
I do have a
Unless-
question, guys.
Unless you were to make a drinking game out of it.
Oh, no.
Anytime Trasher said I hate X team, drink.
Anytime that I have to rearrange what the video stream looks like because MJ is sharing his desktop, drink.
I'm sure. I was sharing my desktop.
Don't turn it off now. I'll probably have to rearrange again.
Oh, is that where that was coming from? That was MJ's?
So, MJ, where are we staying next week? Where's the home of Wisconsin Prep Hockey next week?
Wyndham Garden, right?
Yes.
Yes. They are the sponsor of our Players of the Week. They are also the official state tournament home for Wisconsin Prep Hockey.
And probably where we're going to be passing out our awards, since we don't get to do the Saturday morning thing at the Coliseum bar anymore, because Saturday morning is suddenly booked with a game.
Thanks, WIA.
Three state championship games starting 9 a.m. in the morning.
Apparently they don't care about us.
They don't care that we have to sit up at 11 o'clock at night and cut a podcast. They don't care.
No,
we won't be doing that. We won't be doing that Friday this year anyway.
Oh, nope. We're trying to do our best to get a awards banquet in there, but they're not going to allow it because they got this stupid 9:30 title game. So
Yeah, I mean,
ship happens.
whose idea was it to put a state championship game at the when you have a youth tournament and number 7 in your tournament plays number 8 and they start at 9:30 in the morning or 8:30 in the morning? That's not championship game time.
No, that's
Those are-
last
those
place game.
Yes.
Those are last place games. 7th or 8th place.
Yes, that's not
they're usually
championship
7
game
o'clock in the
time.
morning or something, and
You can't
that's
play
what
hockey
you get for
before
Sunday morning.
you can't play real hockey before 10:30 at the very earliest.
Hey guys, your reward is you're gonna play at 9:30. Yay!
You know what? To the two teams that end up playing in that championship game, it ain't gonna matter. They're just gonna want to play, and they're gonna want to settle it once and for all, and have a chance at a state championship. So
Yes, Northland
see.
Pines and Fond du Lac Springs will be very eager to play that game. I mean, it could be someone else.
you know what though, Junior, you may be right on the head though. Those two looking at this point, probably looking like the favorites to get there, but we still got a little ways to go yet.
There's a bunch of people well, there's not a bunch of people in Amory to begin with, but there's a bunch of people in Amory who are going to be super mad at me now.
Well, there's still that dark horse team from way up in the northwest corner of the state that seems to somehow figure things out at this time of year.
That is true.
Hayward?
What's the
Yeah,
flag?
whistle flag.
I think he's talking about Superior.
Yeah,
What?
Doug.
They're in Minnesota. They're not in Wisconsin. What are you talking about?
We'll see how they get through their brackets, guys. We'll check everything out tomorrow night, and we'll get an idea of what we're looking at for this weekend. So, anything else to add, or are we done here?
I think that's it.
All right. So for the fellas, the other 4 knuckleheads, the big knucklehead right here. Thanks for watching or listening. Been following This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey.
We gone? Bye-bye.